Hi, my name is Chris, and I'm going to answer a question that I'm frequently asked in my line of work as a trainer, and that question is what and when should I eat in order to build muscle the quickest? So I'm going to answer that question the way I would with any of my clients, and I like to give them a little bit of information as far as how the processes of building muscle work, and then explain to them the nutrients that are important to these processes, and also the timing involved and how that affects the overall process of building muscle. So our body has two metabolic processes, one being catabolic, which is when the body breaks down larger complex molecules into smaller units to utilize those for energy in other metabolic functions. So in the muscle building process or breakdown process, how that happens is muscle protein is broken down into the smaller amino acids, and then those are used as energy for other metabolic functions. The second process is anabolic process, and the way that works is it's the opposite of the catabolic process, is where the smaller units are then built and used and stored back into complex molecules, and that's what starts the repair process and the muscle building or hypertrophy of the muscle as we restore a positive muscle protein synthesis. So the goal for building muscle and the goal for nutrition to aid in that is to get the body back into an anabolic state of rebuilding and repairing muscle through the smaller units of amino acids into getting back into a positive muscle protein synthesis, which is the repair and building of that muscle tissue. So that's the number one goal, and all nutrition purposes should, as far as building muscle, should aid that goal. So in a 2001 study, Tipton and Wolf reported that muscle protein metabolism actually lasts for 24 to 48 hours after the resistance training. So all nutrients consumed after the workout during that 24 to 48 hour period will actually aid in building the muscle. Which is important to know, but again, the goal is to get the body back into an anabolic state as quickly as possible, so we don't want to take that entire 24 to 48 hours to make that process happen, or to get it back into the muscles back into a positive protein synthesis. So we're trying to do this as quickly as possible. Therefore, nutrient timing does factor into this equation. And in a 2001 study, Levenhagen and colleagues found that amino acid and glucose uptake in the muscles was almost 3 times greater when protein and carbohydrates were consumed immediately after training compared to 3 hours after training. So that's a big difference in getting the body back into that anabolic state as quickly as possible. 3 times greater uptake of the muscles of those nutrients, the amino acids and the glucose that we need to start this process, 3 times greater, is huge within that 3-hour window. And in a similar study, Aragon and Schoenfield found similar results. The only difference in their study was their timing was a little bit different with the nutrients, which is important to note because it doesn't necessarily have to occur right after the exercise for the nutrients to be used efficiently. So they actually determined that if the carbohydrates and protein and amino acids were consumed in a close enough proximity to the workout prior to, that because of the length of the process of the breakdown of those nutrients and then digestion of those nutrients, that actually served also as the post-workout nutrition, because essentially during the workout they're all being broken down, and then the digestion of them starts after the workout anyways. So it's not necessarily important that they're ingested immediately after. It's just the proximity to the workout that actually aids in getting that body into that anabolic state as quickly as possible. So during their study, they actually found that 20 grams of protein ingested just prior to the workout increased muscle uptake of amino acids 4.4 times that of the normal levels, and those levels didn't return to the baseline for up to 3 hours. So that's huge. Amino acids are what the building blocks of the protein, which are the building blocks of muscle repair and then muscle enhancement, which is the ultimate goal here. So if we're getting those amino acids into the muscles, and the muscles are absorbing that and getting into that positive protein synthesis that much quicker, 4.4 times more efficiently, that's a huge deal in this process. So the commonality in this is the proximity to the workout, not necessarily before or after, because if you're consuming it just before, then consuming it again afterwards is probably going to be a little bit redundant. But if you're not consuming it before, then immediately after is going to be the beneficial way to get to the body and the muscles back into that anabolic process as quickly as possible. So as I mentioned, the amino acids in the protein and the carbohydrates are pretty essential to really getting the anabolic state going as quickly as possible and then building that muscle. And the carbohydrates do help our insulin levels, and insulin has been shown to inhibit muscle protein breakdown. So consuming the amino acids and carbs in a close proximity to the workout really jumpstarts that muscle hypertrophy through the getting the muscles back into that positive protein synthesis. And again, that is the building blocks of how we build muscle. So, in conclusion with that, it's important to understand what the goal is and how the body breaks it down. So, the body breaks down the nutrients that we need to build muscle during exercise. That's the breakdown phase. During the repair phase, we're building them back up through the anabolic processes. So through the amino acids being those building blocks, the glucose for the energy in order for the metabolic process of the anabolism to occur as effectively as possible is important as well. And these different studies show that timing is important to really jumpstart that process, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be immediately after the workout. It just has to be, if it's not just prior to the workout, after the workout, it is then best. So I hope that makes sense. It's a pretty simple breakdown of how it works. So it's just important to ensure that we're getting those proper nutrients that actually aid in the metabolic functions of repairing muscle tissue, which the amino acids found in high quality protein and carbohydrates to repair that glucose, the glycogen stores in the muscles that actually helps provide the energy for the metabolic process of building muscle. So thanks for listening, and I hope that made sense.